Welcome, everyone. Thank you for watching our presentation. I am Angela Montes, a recent graduate in speech-language pathology. I am wrapping up my clinical fellowship and will soon be a licensed bilingual SLP.
I'm Eve Higby, an associate professor in speech, language, and hearing sciences at California State University, East Bay, where I direct the multilingualism lab. In this talk, we're going to present some of our research investigating insufficiencies in pre-professional training of bilingual speech-language pathologists. I'll start by defining the problem, and by the end of the presentation, we'll tie it all together to address how these are language equity issues. First of all, best practice in the field of speech-language pathology is to provide language congruent care for bilinguals and language minority speakers. However, there is a shortage of bilingual service providers to meet the demand needed by non-English speakers, aka minority speakers. As of year-end 2023, ASHA's demographic profile reports that only 7.8% of speech-language pathologists have registered as multilingual service providers. It is likely that there are more bilingual SLPs who don't provide bilingual services. They may have bilingual language skills, but not the clinically relevant language skills needed to deliver services in a minority language. Second, currently there is a lack of training for bilingual graduate students. As of date, training programs align with monolingual ideologies in that those programs that offer specialized bilingual certificates are taught in English. Yet the expectation is that they become a balanced bilingual clinician. Lastly, there is very little research to date that demonstrates the efforts to train bilingual clinicians compared to the amount of research available on how monolingual providers can work with minority-speaking populations. We analyze these problems within the frameworks of standard language ideologies and monolingual English hegemony. Standard language ideologies are at play when bilingual clinicians, especially heritage speakers, discredit their own language skills, especially in professional settings, because their language or dialect have been marginalized. It imagines that there is only one correct way of speaking and that that way is better than non-standard ways. This assumption naturalizes discrimination of minority languages, but is not seen as discrimination at all. And this ideology, as most of you know, often criticizes minority languages as illogical or sloppy and unfit for professional use. Monolingual English hegemony is another ideology we consider to contribute to the problem, the idea that English takes precedence over other languages. This idea is dangerous as not only does it establish and maintain hegemony with English monolingual speakers receiving the most privilege, but it influences assumptions about how and what people think about minority languages. English monolingualism is so normalized in the field of speech-language pathology that English assessment and therapy tend to be prioritized, even when bilinguals need and use more than one language and may have stronger non-English skills. It also drives a priority around English language education. Lastly, assumptions about bilinguals limit recognition for the need for more training. These assumptions include that all bilinguals have balanced proficiency in both languages, and that bilinguals are natural interpreters. Thus, programs assume that bilingual students must not require additional or specialized training to be able to apply their English training to bilingual contexts.
Last year, we investigated how well speech-language graduate programs are training future bilingual SLPs using an online survey. Respondents were recently licensed bilingual SLPs. Some of the respondents pursued an optional specialized certificate focusing on bilingualism in addition to their graduate program's curriculum, while others did not receive any specialized certificates. What we found was that students across both general and specialized programs reported relatively low rates of training experiences in a minority language. Only 23% of respondents had lectures in the minority language. 55% of respondents had courses in a minority language. 58% of respondents reported being connected to a mentor that spoke the same minority language. And 61% of respondents reported being assigned a supervisor that spoke the same minority language. And lastly, 65% of respondents reported learning terminology in the minority language. Additionally, the specialized certificate group felt more prepared than their non-certificate counterparts in most areas, suggesting that certificate programs that support bilingual clinicians better support these clinicians to work with minority-speaking populations. This is the first data that we are aware of that reveals the extent and type of training for bilingual graduate students, showing specific areas that we as a field can address in graduate training programs to better prepare bilingual SLPs. So from what we found to where we are, currently we are developing phase 2 of the original study that began with online surveys. We want to gather more in-depth information via interviews to really understand what prepares bilingual clinicians to practice in minority languages. So to tie it all together, our research aims to address the language equity issues we listed earlier. A lack of bilingual SLPs causes disparities for language minority clients who can't find an SLP to provide congruent care. Despite knowing the benefits, research has repeatedly shown when providing congruent care, or that to a minority-speaking person, their language is more important, valuable, and used more, making it more preferable. They're not able to access a minority-speaking clinician. In the field of speech-language pathology, ideal practice is to provide congruent care. However, this is not the reality. Our goal is that in tackling this issue, we can provide and elevate the availability and status of non-English languages. With this line of research, we strive to illuminate and challenge normative training practices in speech-language pathology that uphold language inequities. Some bilingual graduate students are able to access specialized bilingual certificate programs. However, few graduate programs offer this option. Thus, our second goal is to create a bilingual certificate program, as well as a community of bilingual clinicians that continue to push back against the monolingual hegemony in the field. Thank you for watching.